Hey everybody, this is Flavio Romeo, and on this episode of the Towncast, we went down to Shortways Barn on Goffle Road in Hawthorne, New Jersey, and we spoke to local resident Gina Cavallo, who just published a book called A Survivor's Secrets, and she deals with her life growing up and as an adult dealing with rape and human trafficking, and the subjects are very mature subjects, so I caution you. We are going to have a book signing on May 8th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at Shortways Barn. So make sure you come down for that. All right. Enjoy the episode, everybody. All right, everybody, so here we are. We're at Shortways Barn in Hawthorne, New Jersey, and I have with me Gina, I have to say it in Gina Cavallo. Now, Gina, so, I'm going to put my glasses on because I don't want to screw this up. So, Gina, right now, she's the founder and the executive director of the survivor-led nonprofit organization Paying It Forward, and that's also known as We Rise USA, right? She currently serves as consultant and vice president of the board of trustees for the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and she's also the co-chair on the anti-trafficking task force of the New Jersey chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she was also appointed by the governor of New Jersey as on the Commission of Human Trafficking, right? And now she's released a book called A Survivor's Secret. And I took my glasses off prematurely. Once trafficked, now free from feelings of worthlessness, fear, and shame. And I tell you, I read through this book, and it's just, it's hard to understand how stuff like this can happen to people in this country, and nobody knows about it. So it took you a while to write this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it when you first said, I'm gonna put pen to paper and I'm gonna tell my story? What did you go through? I mean, was that cathartic, like starting the?
It was very surreal, especially since I didn't have plans to write a book, and it wasn't something that was even in my mind.
Right. So you didn't go at it like, I'm gonna put this in a book.
No, not at all. In fact, what planted the seed for me is that whenever I go out on speaking engagements, people were asking me, do you have a book? And I would look at them like, yeah, no, I'm not an author, I don't have a book.
Yeah.
And I can give you information about our organization, but there's no book. And I never went past that thought until one day I was coming out of church and this lady said to me, but have you ever thought of writing a book? She said. And I said, no, but I'll think about it. And that's basically where the ball started rolling. I didn't think I could do it. I thought of all the reasons why I couldn't.
Right.
One, I struggle with learning disabilities. And
which makes it even more challenging.
Which makes it much more challenging. I struggle with a lot of things academically. And but it's amazing how God, when He wants something to happen and a door opens,
it's going to happen.
It doesn't matter what challenges you think, all the reasons why you can't. I can't for this reason, I can't for that reason. And He says, yes, you can. And, I learned that He doesn't call the qualified, but He qualifies the call.
Oh,
and
I like that.
So, He qualified the call, and this is all Him. He gets all the glory for my book because I had nothing to do with this. He wanted this to happen, and He opened the doors wide open. I mean, I started calling different writers and agents, and they were just like, this is what it's going to cost. And I'm like, we'd have to mortgage out our house,
Yeah.
It's like, this is not feasible. And then I just said, okay, I tried, and that was fine. I wasn't pursuing it until a good friend, Rob Davis, him and his wife Julie, friends from church, and they wanted to introduce me to someone that they knew, and I almost canceled that call that we were supposed to have, that conference call, and I didn't. I took it anyway, and that's when all the doors started opening. I was shocked when she says, "I'm going to do this book with you," and then there was a lot of homework that went into it. There was a lot of vision boards, a lot of mind mapping, and it was challenging because every time I thought I had the timelines right, and then I started to take off with the project, I would realize, wait a minute, that date's wrong. Wait a minute, that's not what happened then. It happened at this time, or it happened at that time.
Just trying to go through the chronological order of everything.
Yeah, and then I realized how I was, that was not right, and this is what happened, and it really makes you delve into the past and with a fine-tooth comb.
How was that? How was that for you?
It was hard because I had just come out of some deep counseling, because I chose to want to go to counseling because it's something, there were so many things that I buried and I hid away from my past because of shame, because of fear, and I really wanted to face everything that happened to me, everything that I did.
You got to that point in your life where it's like, I need to know it. It needs to all come out.
Yeah. I didn't want to. I knew that a lot of stuff happened with me. How did I keep ending up on that path? How did I keep ending up in the same relationships and having that same insanity, that same outcome where people sometimes say, I try to break that habit, I break that pattern, and I believe I'm doing things differently, but I find that I'm having the same outcome.
Right.
And that was me all of the time. I just kept having the same outcome. And it was insane, and that's why I wanted to talk to somebody. But it didn't start there. I mean, it started way before there. And so this is it's not just, but this is a product of something that I had little to do with. I mean, it is my story. I get to take back the pen. I get to take my story back, where in the past it was the world telling my story.
Right.
It's like playing telephone tag. If you call a friend and you tell them this is what happened, and then next thing you know, it goes in a big circle and it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, that's not what happened.
At all what happened.
How are you talking about me and painting this picture when that is nothing how it went. That is not how it went. So what I love about it is that I feel really empowered because I feel that it's the first time in my life that I get to write my story about what happened.
It's the only time. I mean, reading this, you had no control over anything that was going on. I mean, things just kept happening to you. And so I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that because you were finally able to put this down, you had control of this.
Yes, yes. I mean, as an author now, I look back and my publisher had to stop me because every time I look in it and I'm like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be that way or that, you're always editing. You're always editing. And he said to me, look, you're always going to be editing. And that's what authors do. They'll go back and read the book and you're going to critique your book all of the time.
Yeah.
And, but you have to come to the point where you put the pen down and say, you know what? Look at the positive things. Look at what I did, and
and that's the agent's job. The agent's job is to say, okay, you're done now.
Yeah,
finished.
They told me. They said, you're done. You're done.
Well, it's a survivor's secret. It's Gina's story on how you lived a portion of your life being trafficked. And the reason why I really wanted to have you on was because there's so many stories that are untold, and it happens in your backyard. It happens to neighbors, and and a lot of people feel like something might be going wrong, but they turn. It's like that's their issues. I don't have to deal with that on my end. When did this journey start for you?
I have to tell you, first of all, even when I speak to people that want me to talk and say, tell me about the trafficking, it doesn't start with trafficking.
Right.
There are seeds that are planted of what you live out, what you learn, okay? And, I basically come from a place where I had very loving, caring parents. And they provided a beautiful home for me, education. They worked really, really hard. I mean, my father came to this country, he couldn't even speak English.
Yeah, it's like my dad.
He had little to no skills, and he planted seeds here and worked by the sweat of his brows to make a home for me, for his family. And he worked hard. But my father also didn't have it easy. He used to share stories with me all the time in his country, how his parents had to come here, and at that time, when his parents came here, they would only allow one son to come. They wouldn't allow them to take
Right.
So he was left behind with my other uncle, and my father had strict grandparents. So he used to run away a lot. He used to get beat up a lot. And he used to tell me stories because my father and I, one of the things we shared a lot, we both used to get like horrific earaches and ear infections. And there was a lot of things that he shared with me, especially as he grew older and he mellowed more. But basically, parents teach you what they learn.
Right.
And it goes into the generations because there's no parent that's perfect, just like there's no kids that are perfect, right?
Yeah.
But the seeds that were planted to me, it comes from a strict environment. And looking back, I mean, I could see and understand why my environment was strict. It was sheltered. And there was little conversation about life or the facts of life.
Right.
And there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. It was difficult for me to articulate my feelings. If you asked me when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, what's my favorite color, I'd look at you like, I don't know. Or what do you like to do? Well, I don't know. There was so much I didn't know about myself. Right?
Yeah.
And because decisions and my thought process was always something that other people thought for me or told me how to walk, told me how to talk. So there was a lot of things that were already in place, and that for me it was strict. I came from an environment that was strict, and yeah.
Did you ever rebel from the?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to leave home.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to leave home. I took off a couple times. I know I was.
Well, you told me your dad ran away a lot.
Yeah.
So he took what he learned from his father. He did it to you. So now you ran away a lot. Yeah.
I did. I ran away a lot from home. I took off a lot. I was just trying to find myself. I wanted to be in a place where I was accepted, where I felt loved.
Yeah.
Sometimes being strict and the way people may treat you may not feel like love, and you get mixed messages. And for me, I wasn't connecting with love. To me, it's like, one day, I'll give you a little example so it's a little clear. One day I remember running into a bathroom, and it was a glass door because someone was chasing me. And was chasing me because I didn't clean the house quick enough, and I wasn't listening to what I was being told.
Right.
And I ran into the bathroom, and I went and sat on the floor next to the toilet seat with my hands over my head. And next thing you know, glass shattered all over me.
How old were you?
I was about 8 or 9 years old. And next thing you know, I go to the hospital, my mother's there, and the staff is asking her what happened. And she says, well, she closed the door too hard. But that's not what happened.
Right.
What happened was that somebody was chasing me.
Right.
I was running away from that person, and so glass shattered on me, and I needed stitches. But the reason I share this with you, what I learned from that is that she was protecting that person from accountability or from what that person did to me, and literally said to the staff, well, she closed the door too hard. And I leaned over to my mom and I said, Mom, that's not what happened. She said, shh,
Don't say anything. Shh. Yeah, or else they'll get in trouble.
Or else they will get in trouble.
Right. Nothing about how you might have been traumatized at 8 years old.
Oh, totally traumatized. And then I leaned over to my mother and I said, I remember this as clear as yesterday. I says, Mom, I said, why did that person, why did they do that to me? Why did they hurt me? She says, Hon, they didn't hurt you. He loves you.
You know he loves you.
Yeah, and it was like minimizing how I felt, what I perceived to be hurt versus love versus, because your family is supposed to love you, right? They're supposed to protect you. They're supposed to be your greatest cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be proud of you, just want to cheer you on and protect you. And all of those, I hear so many people say, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're the youngest. You must get so spoiled and this and that, and you're like treated like a princess." And I'm saying under my breath, like, what are you talking about?
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, that's not my experience. So what I learned from my mom was that my mom, she liked always keeping the peace, and that was her way of keeping the peace.
Right.
And she went to great strides to keep the peace. But I was in great pain as well. I saw things that went on that were traumatizing for me. But you know what's funny? At the time, as a child growing up, I didn't see it as trauma. I didn't see it as any form of abuse, because there's that language is not even in the vocabulary.
Yeah. This is what happens in everybody's house.
I thought this is how everybody lived.
Right.
While I'm up top of the staircase chewing my nails to my cuticles, where my nails would be bleeding because I would be scared
of what was going to happen next.
Yeah, when the next shoe was going to fall.
Well, and that gives you a distorted view of, if your mom is saying, well, you know that this person loves you, and then in your 8-year-old mind you're like, oh, okay, so I guess love means this.
Yes, love means hurt, pain. It all coincides. But I left with mixed messages, and plus what made it more difficult was the fact that the kindness sprinkled in, right? Because there was birthdays. My parents went above and beyond all of the time. They would welcome everyone in the home. Beautiful dinners all the time. Every Sunday,
big Italian dinners.
Everything was just so perfect. It was like picture perfect.
So that must have been confusing.
It was very confusing.
Because how could you do this at one day, and then the same day later on you're doing this?
Yeah. But I was definitely the problem. I was definitely the black sheep. I was a lot of things. I was stupid. I was retarded. Stupid I heard a lot of. And I'm not laughing. It wasn't funny, but every name that was reinforced to me was something that I lived with that was hurtful.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, in fact, I learned this through counseling too, is that I wanted to be accepted so bad by my family. Who doesn't want your family to love you?
Yeah.
But it was always on, off. Okay, I'm going to love you and hang around with you for a few months, and then next thing you know it, I'm going to stop talking to you, and then you got to figure out what you did and why I'm not talking to you anymore. And if it wasn't physical, and then it would become that silent treatment, which I learned is another form of abuse.
Right.
You know, it's not. It doesn't make a difference. It still hurts.
I know. I'm
when
guilty
people
of that.
just stop talking to you.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
It's like, at least talk about it like civil human beings.
And I got that from my father, because my father never spoke.
Right, because we learn that. It's something that's learned.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, it's not a blame or a target. It's what we learn. What we learn is what we pass on to the generations. When I look back, I'm like, oh, I could have taught my daughter differently with X, Y, and Z. I could see how I did really good here, and I didn't do as good here, you know. But hey, I did it. You learn, and it's when we stop saying we don't want to grow anymore, and we think we know everything, and we think we're the best and we're perfect. That's when we stop growing, and from being receptive to have those, to cultivate those relationships. But basically, I mean, it was difficult.
Yeah.
By the time I was 18, I mean, I gave my parents a run for their money. I really did. I mean, they always worried because they never knew, because I was rebelling.
Yeah.
You know, and I was rebelling in a different way. Everybody like deals with their hurt. Some people will hurt people. And if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on others who didn't cut you.
Right.
And for me,
Well
I mean,
said.
I was acting out. School was an extension of my home. I mean, I did terrible in school. I was an F student, you know. But one thing I excelled at in school, which was, it was kind of weird, and I learned this through counseling too, is that I received awards in grammar school and high school for being the funniest student. And I was trying to figure out, how did that happen? Like, how did I become the funniest student? And my counselor was saying, he says, your laughter, yes, was a that's how you survived. And you used laughter to hide behind your pain.
Boy, you see so many comedians and so many actors that, you know, they're so hysterical on stage, and then when you find out their backstory, it's like, wow.
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew? And it's not something you even talk about.
Yeah, right. And
So-
who are you going to talk about it to?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, a lot of people, what I learned from even opening up with this, and brothers and sisters that I've met, extraordinary people. I told you, my friend who's a judge, just an extraordinary, and a terrible, terrible situation that he also suffered. And he's a judge today. You know, it's incredible, it's inspiring, it's hopeful, but it's all God. But by the time I was 18, you know, I thought I had it. I'm going to leave home, but I was on a mission. And that mission was that I wanted to leave, but I was going to come back because I was going to make you love me. You were going to accept me. And you were going to be so proud of me and love me and just, you know.
You said, I'm going to go and do something with myself.
I'm going to do something.
And you're going to be so proud.
Yes.
Is that when you left, 18?
Yeah, it was about 18.
Is that when you went down to Florida?
Florida, yeah. But there was stuff in between that, going to modeling school and different things. But, you know, I didn't even realize when I left home that my wings were broken before I even had a chance to fly. I didn't know that. If you would have told me, hey, you know, you're not...
Well, no, and no one does.
No.
No one does.
No. And so I got a job, and I met people who pretended to be my friends. It made me feel really good. I didn't know they were pretending, but they were loving me. They were respecting me.
You were getting what you needed.
They were filling all these holes that were so empty, and I really thought they were my friends.
And I feel like, you know, the trafficker stories that I've heard, and I'm not talking about the TV stuff, you know, that traffickers prey on that. Like, they know how to groom a person, whether it's a boy or a girl, and make them, because they know they're broken, and they know how they're broken, and they know how to address that brokenness to kind of fill them up and make them feel good about themselves.
It is a grooming process because many people think, oh, it's like the movie Taken. Well, there are parts of the movie Taken. I mean, not where they come in and where the girls get dragged from under the bed.
Yeah.
But there are many countless cases where people are being watched. They see these girls coming in and
buses, trains.
Yeah, they're going to party. They want to explore. It's their independence. They're on spring break, whatever that may look like. And like you said, it starts with the grooming process, and it looks different for everybody. I mean, there's the familiar trafficking where you know who your trafficker is. My roommate knew who her trafficker was because her father sold her for her 16th birthday. He sold her to his brother. Another friend of mine, when she was 10 years old, her mother sold her and said, hey, she says, you'll do this for me. She wanted to be loved. She was a little girl and whatever. Another person I know, she was sold, her father sold her to the congregation of the church that she grew up in. And there's different forms, but like you said earlier, for everyone, even though it doesn't feel good, and even though you know something's wrong, you can't put a word to it. Right. And trafficking is a big word, right? It's not, trafficking people think is international, it's smuggling. Well, we know smuggling is a crime against a country, although you can bring a person, you can smuggle a person into another country for the purpose of trafficking them, whether it be labor or sex trafficking. You're not going to know that until if it happens. Just like a lot of people think that because of the border situation now, they think that this is where trafficking has started. This trafficking's been going on a long, long time.
Well, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes.
And you touched on a good point. It's not just sex; it's also work.
Yes.
And the other thing is, because I know we had discussed it, this is not just women that are trafficked, or girls. This affects men and boys as well.
100%. Yeah. I have met countless boys and men through the United States. And there have been people that I know that I went to school with that have personally gotten in touch with me, a few that know what it is that I do, and they shared with me some confidential things that they have gone through. And so this is a crime that discriminates against no one, and it comes in many forms. It doesn't matter. You have great parents, like I've had great parents. It doesn't matter your neighborhood that you come from, but what does matter is that kids do live out what they learn. So if you're not providing all those things that's going to cultivate somebody's growth and meet them where they're at. So nurture them, encourage them, lift them.
Authentically.
When they don't do well, just say, hey,
let's
try.
Let's work on it together.
Let's work on it. Let me help you. How can I help you do better? If it's, I don't believe in, some people talk about like sibling rivalry, that's normal. That's not. Everybody needs to respect everybody regardless if it's friends, if it's colleagues, if it's family. Everybody should be treated with respect and dignity, right?
Yeah.
Everybody.
So let me ask you, because, I had an older brother, younger brother. If a parent is seeing this sibling rivalry, what should they do about it? Because it like you said, it happens in every family. You always hear sibling rivalry. Some is much greater and much worse than other places, but there are signs that parents can pick up on, I would think.
Yeah.
Where they can either step in or sit them both down and say, hey, this is going to end right now, and let's.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally, that's how it should be done, where it should be nipped. And it shouldn't be allowed. And there's no such thing as a man being able to get away with it and a woman not being able to get away with it. It's very important that a man respects his mother, that a man respects his sisters, his girlfriend, his wife. Because if there's a problem there where a guy is not respecting a woman, and then that's going to grow into other areas too of their life, such as not respecting a woman, not respecting what they have to say, not respecting their body, treating them less than. It's the same thing with a woman. I mean, to be able to give that respect back as well. So it can happen both ways. It's not just the men, but it's the women too. So it works both ways. But it is up to the caretakers. It is up to the guardians or the biological parents to say, hey, this is not allowed. There's boundaries here. And when we're talking about accountability, if you don't give a child accountability, they're going to continue, and you're enabling that behavior.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse. It's not if it gets worse. It's going to get worse. And there's a difference between discipline and punishment. You don't need to punish the kid. You don't need to smack them around. You need to discipline, and discipline is much more harder and challenging than punishing, because punishing, go ahead,
it's easy to
smack
punch your kid
them around.
in the face. It's
exactly.
sitting down, it's disciplining without anger.
Right.
Where you are teaching them that lesson.
Yeah. It's so true, and that's what helps to raise someone that has respect for other people. And you see it in schools too. You see it with kids in school. You see the quiet kids. You see the kids that act out, such as myself.
So if you're a teacher and you see that type of behavior, different type of behavior, erratic behavior, I mean, are they? And I don't know. Are teachers able to have conversation with parents or guidance counselors? I mean, if a teacher sees, I don't know what the rules are anymore. It used to be pretty clear when I was growing up, but now there's so many rules. I don't know what a teacher can or can't do. If there's teachers watching and they say, I did notice that this one girl, she was all bubbly, and then all of a sudden, like, she hasn't talked to anybody for weeks. There are little signs like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about how do you identify a trafficker, how do you identify a victim, how do you know if a kid is in trouble? And they can demonstrate their behavior can come out in so many different ways. Whether they've been abused or what, it could be through being a bully. They could be a bully because somebody's bullying them. Right? Or they could be bullying someone at home, but there's no accountability, so they're just saying, "Oh, I'm going to get away with this,"
Well, it's okay.
It's okay, and then that's something for the teacher to have to deal with. And if the teacher deals with it, and then the parent finds out, if the parents aren't supportive into disciplining that child, and then it becomes a matter that the teacher's not a good teacher, So it's something that has to be done together. The community has to be able to do this together with the parents, with the caregivers, with the guardians. It's not something that parents can do alone or teachers can do alone, or even law enforcement. It does take a village. It truly does. But it's not.
And you have to be open to what's happening. Like, you can't just close your eyes and say, "Oh, well, that's their problem."
Yeah, you can't minimize what's going on. If somebody says something, and then you need to hear what they're saying. And I think it's really.
I know, and oftentimes in the book, there were times when you did speak up, like you're talking about with your mom. Like, why did you just lie? And for a child to hear that, it just, it's devastating.
It is devastating, but I also believe, unless we're in those shoes, that it's difficult if someone says something to you that can be shockful. You can be in shock. And sometimes it's easier to turn the head and not deal with it.
Right, it just didn't
and
happen.
Minimize it, or the victim blaming.
Right.
So a lot of people, when you were.
All right, so that was our wonderful technology that just kind of shut everything down. So we're going to pick it up. I did want to ask you. I want to make sure that if there is someone that's watching this or they're listening to this, regardless of their age, it could be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it is, that went through, things like this, that went through this kind of abuse. Is there a website they can go to that you'd recommend, or someone they can call?
Absolutely. There's a few things to do. First of all, it's very hard for a victim to identify that they're a victim. Because they are so convinced, and this is a psychological control, because after you're stripped of your layers of dignity, after you're beaten, after you're tortured, after you're abused, traffickers no longer need to do that to you, because now they have you under their psychological control.
Right, you're on
and this
autopilot.
could be with any abusive situation. It's just like you had said it perfectly earlier about a trafficker finds out, hey, you're having problems with your family, your father's making you do your homework and he's not letting you go out. And then I say to you, yeah, my mother's the same way. She's really tightening things up on me. She doesn't let me go out. She doesn't let me talk with my friends. And then you start feeling sorry for me. And then what happens is that next thing you know, people are saying, hey, that girl used to be so outgoing. She had a lot of friends. She loved being around her family. And now all of a sudden, he's taking her in more and more. And
pulling that child away.
He wants to isolate her from everything and anything. And why? It gives him or her more control over their victim. So back to your question, it's very difficult for victims that are still being victimized, because they're still being told it's your fault, nobody's going to believe you, and they're also afraid of retaliation, because I'm going to hurt you. And they know they don't just say they're going to hurt you just to say it. They follow up on their threats. Or I'm going to hurt something or someone that means a lot to you. Or I'm going to show these pictures. Okay, so there's a lot of threats, and these threats are real.
So they take pictures and videos and they hold that over your head. I'm going to show this to your family and your friends.
And then you have the survivor end of it, a survivor that's no longer living in that hell, that managed to escape. But it doesn't mean that every survivor then goes out and gets help, right? Because there's two things you're coming out with from escaping that life: fear, shame, and also not being believed.
Right.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that.
I told somebody some of what happened to me. And when this person got mad, because it's a trusting, confidential thing, you want to make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
So if there's something really eating at you and you need to talk and you feel I'm safe, and then next thing you know it, 2 months later, I'm telling people what you just shared with me, that's really hard. And then I was told that, she had this kind of business. She had a prostitution business. And it's like, oh my gosh, a prostitute is a prostitute. And there is so much harm in this. Do you know, when we talk about statistics, how many people that are lucky enough to escape? Do you know how many people don't come forward? You know how many people don't prosecute, don't report it? You know why? Because they're not going to be believed. Right. Because somebody's going to take your story.
How would a person like that do? Well, I mean, all
it's because of how you dressed.
Right.
It's you caused it. You're the one that caused it. It's really people like to victim blame. Someone once said to me, I don't know about your story, because why would you want to come home and bring gifts home to your family? Because I love my family, I wanted to buy them gifts. That's partly that's in my book.
You want to show them love.
I wanted to show them love because I wanted their acceptance. Not for 3 months or so. I wanted their acceptance. And they're like, no, there's no home. That's, you love your family, right? You would hope that they're supposed to love you, but that's not how it works. But the statistics are not the way they are, because a lot of people, they can't even begin their healing. And healing isn't just going to counseling and saying, okay, I went to counseling and I'm all better. It doesn't work that way. Because when you manage to escape that kind of life, whether it's for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, you're coming out of it with a life sentence. I found out I had convictions. I had multiple arrests. You have the trauma you're dealing with. You have the secrets. You have housing issues. You have the records. I didn't even know I had these rap sheets. I mean, they were real. And I didn't learn about it until maybe 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
Because you were
found
just
out
in
because I
it.
was in school. And to go to this particular school working with kids, they had to do a background check. So I got myself fingerprinted and everything. And next thing you know it, I'm in school 3 months now, and I get a phone call one day and said, you can't come back. And I'm like, what? And I was like,
What did I
really
do?
working hard. What did I do that I can't come
yeah.
back to school? And they were like, well, they said when your record came back, they said the girl filed it away, and we never saw your FBI record. And it came back, and you have convictions. You have multiple convictions. And I was like, this can't be. I says, I want to see a copy of it. They said no. And then they said, you have to go redo it. So I had to go redo my prints so I can get copies of my own record. And then I contacted the coalition. I mean, they're like my family. And it was really hard because I was supposed to leave for school that night. And my husband says, hey, good luck at school tonight, hon. I says, thanks, but I wasn't going to school. I was going to lick my wounds. I was going to a bar, and I was going to start drinking. And I was just like, what got over me?
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. I'm not hiding, but I'm going to fight. When they say pick your battles, I said, this is a battle to pick. And I called the coalition. I says, I can no longer, work alongside of you because of this. And I told them. And they started setting me up with volunteer lawyers for justice. They're all over the United States.
Really?
Yeah. And I have 2 of my convictions are gone, and one of them is almost done.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
So they work pro bono to help survivors and people that were...
Yeah. I had different attorneys in different states, professional. I met one of the professional law firm that I met was in Florida. Beautiful law firm, amazing people that you would think that I paid them $100,000 the way they were treating me.
Wow.
Like really special, with the utmost respect and dignity. They fought tooth and nail for my case. And at the end of the day, they had nothing to prove, that this should never even have happened. And there's so many victims that are being, they're being wrongfully arrested and convicted. But if anyone has, they could call the hotline, and it all depends. If it's someone that sees something, they feel that it's wrong and something needs to be done, nobody should ever get involved personally.
Right.
And you should
report it to somebody.
Yeah, you should always call the hotline number, which is 1-888-373-7888.
Okay. And we'll put that up here so people can see it.
And the other thing is, if you see that someone's in immediate danger, I totally call the local authorities, like
911.
right away.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that, because I know this, a friend of mine had happened to. They saw something and then they were like, they didn't do anything about it. And of course, nobody knows what happens after that, but you don't know what's going to happen after that. So if you see something, it's like see something, say something.
Yeah. I mean, you're better off if nothing does happen or come of it,
Then everybody
but better
walks
to
away.
be safe than sorry. And you're probably helping someone else.
Yeah.
But it's something that's a serious crime, and like I said, a lot of victims don't even know they're victims. A lot of survivors coming out of that life don't even realize that, it wasn't their fault what happened to them.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to get to that place of realizing that it's not your fault.
Well, and I know that and by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to put all of the organizations that we talked about, their websites, phone numbers, so that people have a reference for this.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about Celebrate Recovery, and I love that story that you were just asked to help serve some coffee at some point, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, my son-in-law, he's amazing, and he was launching a new ministry called Celebrate Recovery, also known as Redemption Recovery, and it's through the church that he works at in Totowa, Emergence Church, and so he's launching this new ministry. This is back in 2016, I believe. And I said, I'll come make coffee for you once a month. And he says, oh, that would be great. And next thing you know, he's saying, hey, Mom, why don't you join this step study? He says, there's guys having their step study here. And I looked at him like he had two heads, and I was like, why would I join the step study? I'm not struggling with drugs or alcohol. I mean, I did.
You were thinking of
I
a
did at one
12-step type
time.
program.
Yeah, which it is technically, it's 4 books, 1-year commitment, but this is faith-based, and it's totally different. It just is different. And I got defensive and indignant with him at first, but I realized looking back, and I spoke to my counselor about this, it was because I was putting up my walls, I was becoming defensive.
Right.
Like everybody tell me everything's wrong with me, now you're telling me something's wrong because now you're inviting me to a group because I need help. And he says, no, everybody struggles with something. It's for people that struggle with alcohol, drugs, codependency, anger, anxiety, depression, loneliness, separation, pornography, food, gambling, and
there's a long list.
A long list of just life struggles every day. And at first I said no, and then I thought about it, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. I'll do it for him,
Right.
I'll do him a favor and I'll go. Right. I'll check it out.
Yeah, God had different plans.
God had a totally different plan, and it turned out that he I started doing that, and probably the first several weeks I was just like counting the bricks, counting the ceiling tiles, but listening, different people sharing different stories. Some of the things started resonating with me. And I remember one particular evening I was leaving, and I was just getting triggered. It was like the horses were at the gate, and I got really scared because there were so many things I intentionally buried, and there's so many things I remembered too.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I was remembering when I was sitting in the car, but then it was stuff I didn't remember that was starting to come up.
You opened a door.
I opened a door, and I said, okay, this is not good. So I'm going to stop going to this program.
Because I want to close that door
back up. I want to bury it again, exactly. And that's what I tried to do, but my attempts failed. One of my leaders, Marianne, and a couple they're amazing leaders, and they kept calling me, whatever you're going on. I said, yeah. I says, well, what happened? I started this program. I says, but I bit off more than I could chew. I says, I'll check it out down the road. But then what I realized, Flavio, was that it wasn't going away.
Right.
No matter what I was doing. And then I decided I'm going back. And I went back because this woman said to me, she says, I want you to know something. She continued to call me. She says, whatever you're going through, I want you to know you're safe. You're safe here. It's confidential. And that was like,
wow. And when did you ever feel that kind of safety?
Exactly. So I went back and I decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to face every single event of my past. No more secrets. And I'm going to need counseling. I'm going to need support groups, mentors. And my healing didn't stop. It's a journey because I still get triggered. I still get those old tapes that come back and, the old ways. And that's where I surrender. And I just go, you know what, God, whenever I move over and He's in control, He just continues to do miracles in my life. And I started meeting other survivors. In fact, it was one of my prayers. I just wanted to meet one survivor. And next thing you know, I was invited on a retreat. And one of my mentors, which now became one of my best friends, is Teresa Flores. And she's nationally known. She's written 5 books.
Wow.
She's a survivor. And she's out in Ohio. She does soap. It's Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. And her and I became very good friends. In fact, I help her on her retreats where I do presentations. She now is the first survivor leader that has that does men retreats too and men's conferences, which is amazing. She keeps it small when we have them, but it's like very impactful that these men that show up because they're continuing their healing journey.
Right.
And it's a process. You don't stop. You have to continue.
You're never healed.
No. It's nothing about arriving. And it's just like why I continue to go to conferences. I'm in Trenton a lot. I get invited to Washington, D.C. In fact, that was very surreal because I do law enforcement conferences too. In fact, we're going to have a statewide New Jersey law enforcement conference.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to educate all law enforcement. We have actually right now 4 key leaders in law enforcement that are going to be helping us put this together.
That's great.
And I was at a law enforcement conference in Monmouth County with one of the sheriffs. And that's where Congressman Smith said to me afterwards, he says, I really want you to come to Washington and testify before the House of Foreign Affairs Committee. And I couldn't. He says, please try to make it happen. He says, I really would like you there. And that's where I ended up going, but I had no idea what I was walking into.
Right.
I had no idea at all. And it's God. He just continues to move mountains. And, we're continuing to make a difference in our organization as well. We have a very robust survivor and inclusive resource directory with the coalition. It's in our website, safernj.org. And which is great because it's for people that need any kind of help at all, whether they need shelter, whether they need emergency
so
food,
they can reach out to safernj.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a lot, and we have a lot of people in place as far as therapists. In fact, back to Celebrate Recovery, they also have a counseling center as well. Emergence has a counseling center, as well as my son-in-law has his own private counseling center. It's called Restore. And they also provide sliding scale fees if someone's struggling. And if the church knows that someone can't even afford counseling, they'll provide counseling at no cost.
That's awesome.
To help people. They do a lot of good, the church, to help people transition to a life. It doesn't mean that you have to be Christian if you don't believe. They don't say, well, you
just
can't
there to
come
help.
or be. They're just there to
Christ
help.
would have done the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's a survivor's secret. Now, it's not out yet.
It's not out.
It's going to be released.
It's going to be released May 7th, which is, Tuesday, May 7th.
And we are going to plan a book signing. If you're in the Hawthorne area, we are going to plan a book signing. Keep an eye out for those flyers. Keep an eye out on our website. We'll put it up there as well. And also go to ginacavallo.com. Right? It's your website. .org. Your website?
Yeah.
It's ginacavallo.org?
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's okay.
ginacavallo.org. So you can read a little bit more about her story, read about the organizations that she's affiliated with, and you can also pre-order the book, A Survivor's Secrets. You can pre-order the book, so when it comes out, it's going to come right to your door, right?
Yeah.
I saw that on
Barnes,
your website.
Yeah, and it's at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and I'll be here to do a book signing.
That's right. So keep an eye out for that. This was a tough read. I mean, this was a tough read for me, and just thinking about you pulling it all out again and having to face it again, everything that you went through is that's, to me, that's a hero. Being able to do that and then help others, try to get to that point where they can address it and talk about it and recover. Try to get some counseling, get some recovery.
There's help for everybody, but
Yeah.
nobody should have to have secrets, you
Right.
know? And the beauty of it is that when I went through this program with Redemption Recovery, and I had to do a lot of work peeling that onion,
Yeah.
but when I got to the core is where I found my truth, my identity, and my freedom. And I couldn't ask for more than that.
That's
And my
awesome.
husband and my family is so supportive of me. You know, I don't know what I would do without them. I wouldn't be doing this work without their love and support.
Yeah.
So I'm truly blessed, and there's help for everybody, and there's a lot of resources in my book
Yeah.
for parents, for teachers, for law enforcement, for healthcare, for kids of all ages. I would just let kids know that it's okay for them to say no too, you know, to be respectful and to know that kids should have a voice, right?
And listen to them.
Listen to them.
Because they're, you know, they're at the age where the words that are coming out are true. I mean, a lot of what they're feeling and what they're saying, we have to be open to hearing that. Not
Yeah.
saying you should not feel that way.
Yeah.
Because that just shuts them down.
You shouldn't feel that way, or this is what happened. That's not what happened to you. This is what happened to you.
Right,
And,
right. This couldn't
know.
have happened. They couldn't have done this to you because they love you.
There are so many people, Flavio, that say, of all ages that I speak with, one of the common things we all relate to is that that's not what happened, and we don't believe it. And you're telling someone else what happened to you. And then
Right.
you have the influencers, those that tell the other person, keep away from that person because he's toxic or she's toxic, and you know, he's bad news, she's dangerous. It's like you paint pictures of people the way you want them to see you.
Yeah.
That's not right. That's not something God would be happy with. And you should, all people of all ages should be able to have that right to share their own narrative, to share their own story, not what other people think. So,
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for doing
you.
this. For all the organizations you're affiliated with, for your organization, SaferNJ.org. And listen, if you're watching this and you're from out of state or out of the country or somewhere else, there are organizations in place that can help you, that can
Yeah.
put you on the right path to recovery. So reach out, and if you need help, go to SaferNJ.org. You know, go to someone like Gina that can at least put you on the right path to recovery. Right? Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank
Keep
you.
doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Reach out. Remember, it's Survivor Secrets by Gina Cavallo. Cavallo.
GinaCavallo.org.
GinaCavallo.org. Thank you so much. All right. Be well, everybody.